He brought up Bill Clinton and Jonathan were talking about the trans ad, which is on the front page of the New York Times today. Of course, there's not too much debate on how effective it was. If you look at the fact that the Trump campaign spent $30 million on it, and it ran 30,000 times, I think, on NFL games. We learned in '88 in the Michael Dukakis campaign that attacks in presidential campaigns that are not answered are in effect admitted to, and whether that's true or not. And so we've talked about that, but I want to talk more generally as you get further away from this campaign, as you know, a legendary ad exec.
Legendary.
Legendary.
Can we? I get introduced from now on. Can we do that?
Well, see, the only reason I can say that is because Mika's not here,
Yeah.
but a legendary brand expert too. So, the further I get away from this, I'm wondering, could any Democrat have beaten Donald Trump this year with as bad as the Democratic brand seemed to be in Florida, in Texas, in Middle America?
Would have been really difficult. Look, party closest to the center wins. It's that simple. If you trace every election, if you trace the swing suburban voters who go from George W. Bush to Barack Obama to Donald Trump back to
Joe Biden.
Joe Biden. This country is just right of center. The Democratic Party is too damn progressive. You're not going to win elections. If you're talking about, even if you're defending a position on trans, you're not going to win an election. If you're talking about somehow defending college campuses, kids who are protesting and saying from the river to the sea because you don't want to offend them, you're not going to win elections. What wins elections is, I'm going to get your gas prices down, I'm going to stop crime, I'm going to close the border, I'm going to solve your problems. And the more the Democrats talk about philosophical things, the more Bernie Sanders is in any way, even though he's not a Democrat, people think of in this party. AOC, and she's a wonderful politician, but that should not be the brand of the party. It's too big a perception of the brand of the party. So many people have said to me, where's my party? I got nowhere to go. There's not a party. I felt the Democratic Party was not representing me in terms of the imaging that was put out there. So they need to move to the center. Some people in this network might not like that. It might not be good television, but that's where they need to be.
Well, it's interesting. From what I saw, AOC is actually asking a lot of really important questions and going, wait a second, how did you vote for me and Donald Trump? And it's just like Bernie Sanders. You bring up Bernie Sanders, I will tell you there are a lot of people that in 2016 would have voted for Bernie Sanders instead of Donald Trump. Now, that makes no sense to us in politics, that follow politics all the time. That makes no sense. But it's just like the most extreme example of this I've ever seen was 1968. The Kennedy family still coming to terms to it. I remember asking me later on, Ethel Kennedy and others still trying to grapple with how was it that the same people that loved Bobby Kennedy voted for George Wallace in the Democratic primary after, June 6, 1968. And that's a great question for Democrats to ask. Because I'm conservative, of course I'm going to naturally think, oh, well, you need to be more centrist. I think that would have helped a lot in the upper tier states. But there is a real debate going on in the Democratic Party, and I'm not so sure it has everything to do with ideology, because when Barack Obama won, he was the third most liberal senator in the entire Senate. But he spoke to Middle America back when America was a little more center left. I think Donnie's right. It's center right now, but it was a little more center left. And he knew how to connect with the center, just like Bill Clinton knew how to connect with the center, just like Ronald Reagan knew how to connect with the center. And as Donald Trump, shocking a lot of people in that he connected with a lot of people that just weren't ideological, that consider themselves sort of in the center.
Yeah, and as Democrats are doing this soul searching, first of all, there are some just major forces at play. We've seen incumbents throughout the globe, coming out of the pandemic, really struggling, either losing power or at least having their clout significantly reduced. So that's a real issue with inflation and the like. We have seen certainly there's a uniqueness to Donald Trump and his candidacy, and the fact that he was so familiar to so many Americans. But AOC is a great case study. Her district in Brooklyn and Queens, it's heavily immigrant. It's heavily voters of color there. She won overwhelmingly. It went overwhelmingly for Democrats cycle after cycle. I mean, certainly Kamala Harris still won that district, but Donald Trump made real inroads, and that was repeated in immigrant-heavy neighborhoods throughout New York City and a lot of major cities, where there was a sense that he connected on certain issues, whether it was immigration or others, or some cultural issues,
right.
that resonated with voters, particularly those working class voters who simply thought that he understood where I am more than the Democrats did, and that's what they have to face right now before the midterms in 2 years and the presidential in 4.
Well, and again, I think am I correct? AOC is asking people, going out asking.
She's asking the right questions.
Asking the right questions.
She's trying to reach out to working class voters and figure out what has gone so wrong.
Exactly, and that's what needs to be done. Okay, now explain to me why you voted for me and why you voted for. Right. So I think that's important. I do want to say on Bernie Sanders, I think the Democratic Party can be more centered on cultural issues. I think they need to be. Again, I'm a former Republican and I'm a conservative, so maybe Democrats don't listen. But I've been hearing this from Democrats for 3 or 4 years, and every time I bring it up, they go, "Oh, you're just saying that because you're a white guy from the South." I said, "No, I'm just saying that because the liberals are telling me things have gotten crazy on college campuses. Things have gotten crazy in their kids' schools. Things have gotten crazy on the border. Things have gotten crazy when they go into a CVS and they try to get some toothpaste and they've got to ask somebody to unlock, all this stuff." So that's part of it. But I will say on economic issues, we all are concerned. We all are concerned where America is going. The rise of billionaires and the influence that billionaires are having on this country, it's getting larger and larger. And yes, we've explained it many times. There are many, many things I'm deeply concerned about regarding Donald Trump, retribution, the violent rhetoric he used during the campaign, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're looking at that issue for good reason. But right behind that are billionaires that keep getting richer and richer and more powerful and having a bigger say. And I'm not just talking about Elon Musk. I'm talking about the entire class of it. And I think that's a real threat. And Bernie Sanders speaks to that probably better than anybody. I'm not saying do everything that he's talking about as far as taxes go, but I'm saying the Democratic Party would be making a big mistake if they decided they were going to be hey, we're going to cut more taxes than the Republicans are.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying brand perception.
Oh, I know that.
Brand perception.
Right.
So that there are certain figures, and AOC, I love AOC, and Bernie Sanders, I respect him. If they are the faces of the party, it allows the Republicans to own the entire middle. It's just perception.
I totally get that, right? Unless people do what AOC's doing, and they keep going out, as Bill Clinton said, keep going out talking to people. When you talk to people, I've always found when you actually go out and talk to people, really remarkable things happen.
Yes, so I salute all of that. But right now, the Democratic Party is mush. It is mush. It is a broken party. It needs, and one also thing that saves parties, if you go back to Ronald Reagan, if you go back to Barack Obama, is a transformational candidate. What changes everything is when that one person comes along that embodies, can say, I can fix your problem. So that person, we may be in the discussion right now, maybe somebody who's not in discussion, but the Democratic Party needs that fresh face that's going to say, come forward.
Well, I just want to say, Willie, really quickly here, that I've been talking about it all week. I know people are really discouraged. They're really concerned. I've been talking about it all week. You know, Republicans felt that way after Barack Obama just crushed them in 2008. And they won and massively over. I think that was probably seen as the low point of the Republican Party politically. Over the next decade, Republicans picked up over 1,000 legislative seats across the nation. So the only thing I'd say to my Democratic friends is today is today. Tomorrow is tomorrow. You want to predict the future, you shape the future. And, you know, there's an article today, I think in the Times, talking about how people have given up on the resistance. They're tired, this, that. I get it. Yeah, but maybe instead of knocking on doors, first of all, enjoy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the holidays. Take a breath. And then when the new year comes, get involved. And that's not necessarily marching in the streets. That's like figuring out, knocking on doors, registering people. The new campaign, Bill Clinton would tell you, the campaign for control of the Senate and the House for 2026 begins today.